private information. We don't want to disclose that. But once they start recording things, then yes. There are public recordings before it ends up on the sheriff's sale list. So I'll tell you a story. Like, I bought a house. I didn't do a subject to, but I bought a house recently that was going up for sheriff's sale. So, and I didn't find it through the sheriff's sale list. This was just keep my ears open. So I will take and talk to anybody who's having a difficulty, just because I'm a real estate agent, I'm an investor, so I can give insight, a little bit. So I saw someone a year and a half ago post on Facebook that they were upset something with their house, they were distressed. Sent out a message, say, hey, what's going on? Maybe I can give you some advice. And like I said, I talk to people 2-3 times a week, and just so happened this one turned into something. So their situation was, they were 60-ish. Their parents had died. The mother died first, then the father. She was living in the home, taking care of the parents. So her and her sister inherited the property. It had a small mortgage on it. It was a double block. It's right here it's right in Kingston, not very far away. She had relatives living on one side who all they did was drink and tear the place up, and eventually a pipe burst and it became uninhabitable. So now she's not getting rent off the other side, has this mortgage to keep up with. Doesn't know how, or doesn't have the means or wherewithal to take control of the estate. Her other sister, who also inherited, they're not on speaking terms, doesn't even know where her sister lives. Doesn't have her sister's phone number, nothing. So she didn't know what to do. And she's like, I'm falling further behind. I live on the one side because I was living there taking care of my parents. The other side I can't get any income from. And I have this mortgage. I'm falling behind. I can't keep up with the sewer bills. I can keep up with my utilities, but I can't keep up with everything. And so I said, well, let me walk through the property. Maybe there's something we can figure out. So I walked through it and talked about, what we could do. I said, I could buy it. I could pay you this much. And then I could rent the one side back to you, yada, yada. We talked about it. Sounded like we were on the right track. Then she wouldn't respond to me. And a year went by. And I just put it up on my whiteboard. And periodically I'd go and check and see if taxes were being paid or whatnot. But one thing I also checked was, since I knew she was falling behind on the mortgage, I would check the sheriff's sale, and I also was checking, I checked the prothonotary's office. So even before it actually ends up on the sale for the sheriff, actions are happening. So they actually have to go through a court process because in this state it's called a judicial foreclosure. So you actually have to go through a court process for a judge to decide to send it to sheriff's sale. So when they start doing that, that's creating notices. So
is that public?
Yeah. So how I knew about it was, like I said, I was keeping track lightly. And what I saw was on the prothonotary's office that they had started the foreclosure process. And technically, you can go out to the prothonotary's website and you can search. If you actually want to download the documents, you have to pay. But if you actually look carefully, there's a panel on the left side, and if you scroll down and you look at some of the details, they have a little bit of summary information. That's all I needed to know. I knew what the document was about. I knew it was about foreclosure, and it had enough detail that I knew that she had gotten notice about this. So I contacted her again. Well, suddenly she's very motivated to talk because now the rubber's meeting the road, because now she's about to lose the place she lives in. And come to find out when we talked again is a friend of hers and other relatives were saying, don't sell it, we'll buy it. Yeah, well, promises are great, but you can't cash a promise. Right. When you're going to sell a house, what do you normally ask for? Well, I got to have a contract. I want a deposit. I want to know you're serious, or I want proof of funds. I want a pre-approval letter. Well, when you're dealing with family, they're just promising. They're not giving you any of that, and the promise doesn't happen. You can't cash it. So she's in this situation, and now she's all scared. So we talk again. We start acting on it. The thing that was shitty is with foreclosures, when you stop paying, a few things happen. One is the bank is spending money to foreclose on you. They're spending money on lawyers. You're also not paying your insurance. So your insurance, your private insurance, your homeowner's insurance stops. And the bank will put insurance on the property for you. It's called forced placement. Well, their insurance costs twice as much. They add all of that onto what you owe. So what you owe, in addition to interest and late fees, all the lawyer's fees and court costs and the forced placement insurance and what you owe starts going up. So over the course of that year, she didn't talk to me. She ended up owing several $1,000s more. And basically that made it such that when we actually went to close on it, to make the numbers work, I had to pay an extra $1,700, and there was nothing left over for her. If we had bought it a year prior, she probably would have had $6 or $7 grand left over to inherit. But instead of having $6 or $7 grand in her pocket, those promises that she couldn't cash ended up that she got nothing. And I ended up paying a little bit more for the property. So what I ended up doing was I gave her 3 free months of rent so that she could try to get stabilized. But by the time we closed, it was down to the hairy end on it.
The benefit for her doing that was not to get foreclosed on.
Not to get foreclosed on, to keep the place where she lived. Yeah. So if she had done it a year prior, she would have kept the place she lived. I was renting it back to her at a reasonable price. I told her up front, I said, I can pay you this price, and I know your interest is you want to stay here, because her grandparents had built the home. No. So it was the family home. So she had emotional attachment to it. Yeah, well, she had emotional attachment to it. It's where she's been living. I said, the side you're living on is not nice, but it's functional. So what I'll do is I will rent it to you at a reduced rate. Yeah. So I can pay you this low price, and I can rent it back to you at a reduced rate, and you're getting what you want, because you want to stay here because it's emotional and because it's, stability. It's where you live. You don't have to move, whatnot. And I said, I just want to be honest. I said, if you wanted to leave, I could pay you more, or I could find somebody else who would pay you more. Then you just have more money in your pocket. But like I said, staying in the house was her most heartfelt desire. So that's the way we ended up working it. But by the time we closed on it, it was very difficult. We closed on it, it was 6 or 7 days before the sheriff's sale. So it was very, very close. And I even took one additional risk. So the one additional risk was, in order to make this work out, we probably could have negotiated it, but I figured, what the hell? You got to take risks in life. There was a judgment against her father before he died for a credit card debt that supposedly her mother had rung up. Judgments, like I said, are only good for 5 years unless they're revived. Likely they do not realize that the property changed hands. So that judgment is still lien against the property I bought, but it disappears in like 7 weeks unless they revive it or they try to foreclose. So I got like 7 weeks, and I think it's like 14 grand or 17 grand. It'll still be a good deal, even if I had to pay it. I probably could have approached them and offered them pennies on the dollar, because judgments are hard to collect on. But I figured that probably a 98% chance I can get off with paying nothing versus paying half of it, at closing or something like that. So I said,
those judicial sales, from when the judge signs off to put it into the sheriff's sale, are those public?
I believe so. Okay. I don't know that I've looked at the. I'd have to go and look. It should all. I'm sure it's all public. I just don't know if it shows up
in
at the
courtroom. Like, you can we walk in there and listen to that, or is it just a guy behind the desk check?
I would assume you could. I would assume. I've not. But the fact is how would you know when one's happening?
True.
You know what I mean? So you'd have to really be interested in knowing, like, it's not, I doubt it's where they schedule like a whole, day that you could find out, every third Wednesday we do nothing but, foreclosures. I don't know how you'd even figure that out. Yeah. But if you knew about it, yes, you might find them on the Unified Judicial System website. I don't know. Like I said, the Prothonotari's office is where I found this one that I knew they had gotten the notices. Yeah. And like I said, just keeping your ear to the ground. If you see a property that's distressed, you can research it every which way. Look to see if they owe taxes. Look to see if they have, if the owner has things recorded in the Prothonotari's office. You can find out a lot of information. But that's this is where the opportunities are. It's finding finding things. Not just at the sale, but before the sale. Because before the sale, well, you're focused on one property. So once you start working that deal, you're only doing like a title search on one property. You know the condition of the title when you buy it. Like in my case, I know that I'm accepting potential liability for that unpaid judgment. I know it goes away. When you're going to a sheriff's sale or tax sale, you're probably not going to want to spend the money to research 10 or 20 properties to figure it out. But here, I'm only researching one.
Yeah, question about earlier, I forgot when you were talking about the title search thing. I don't know if you'd mentioned it or not. I have a complete Super Saiyan Psycho story with the title search companies down in Florida and utter lack of brainstem or anyone doing anything at all or whatever. I remember speaking to one of his attorneys up here who said, you guys go back 60 years on a title search. Now, do you have a preliminary cursory title search in Pennsylvania? Does that exist here? Because I just learned about it in Florida about a month ago.
I don't know if they, okay. I think you told me that specifically if you don't ask for a 60-year search that they're not typically doing it. From what I understand, it's title searches are not standardized because I asked a lawyer.
Same in Florida.
Yeah, well, I was at a meetup a few months ago and a lawyer was there speaking. I forget what he was speaking about, but I talked with him afterwards. And I had a question. I was like, you have title searchers that work for you. Like, do you send them somewhere for training? Like, where do you go? Like, I've searched, like, because I'm nerdy. I would go and take a class. That would be me. He's like, no, it's pretty much everybody's just, trains them in-house however they want it done. So every law office, like, apparently just trains their own searchers and so there's no standard training for them. There's no license, but generally speaking, the 60-year search comes in because that's what's required for the title insurance. The title insurance underwriters want 60 years because once you get beyond 60 years, most of the time the people